Bed. Love.
Bed.
Bed.
Love.
Beyond.
Beyond.
Bed, love, beyond. Bed, love, beyond.
Welcome to Bed Love Beyond, episode 18. 18.
Damn.
She's legal, everybody. All right, so
Ew.
what?
I don't know.
To vote. Damn. Welcome to Bed Love Beyond. The podcast for the hopeful and the hater in us to discuss sex, love, and whatever's clever with like-minded people like you who are also in limbo with love.
Like us.
Yes, this is episode 18, and even though we started off with happy-go-lucky, this is a serious episode.
One of those special episode.
A very special episode.
Like different strokes.
This is a very special episode of Bed Love Beyond. Yes. It's called Emotional Abuse, Exploring the Pain That Goes Unseen. And we have a guest who has experienced that, and her name is Brigid. What's going on, Brigid?
Oh, not much. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, we're going to be talking about emotional abuse because somebody actually wanted to do this episode, and it's a pretty good episode to have because most of our episodes, yes, they're lighthearted, or some of them, you know, are kind of serious about like the marriage and stuff and like moving in, but this one is like really serious, and we really wanted to talk about this because we feel like a lot of people go through this and they don't necessarily want to come out and say anything, but we just want to let you know that we know exactly what you're going through, and you know there's definitely help out there, and whatever we can do on our end to even just explore this topic, we want you to know that, you know, everything's all right and everything's all good. So first we want to get into the definition of emotional abuse. And what I found, it says, it involves a regular pattern of verbal offense, threatening, bullying, and constant criticism, as well as more subtle attacks like intimidation, shaming, and manipulation. Emotional abuse is used to control and subjugate the other person, and quite often it occurs because the abuser has childhood wounds and insecurities they haven't dealt with.
Oh, damn. That just like really delved into like psychology 101.
Yeah, perhaps as a result of being abused themselves. They didn't learn healthy coping mechanisms or how to have positive, healthy relationships. Instead, they feel angry, hurt, fearful, and powerless. Emotional abuse.
That's actually a really good definition. And I was just looking up while you were doing that, kind of like the DSM, which is our, and I say our, like social work 101. It's like basically the book we have to study from. And it's basically a diagnostic manual that if you go to a therapist, that's basically how they diagnose you. Like they look up in the book, and if you meet like X amount of the number of the criteria for whatever, you know, mental illness it is, there's a code, which is how people bill and get paid, and there is a definition. So for emotional abuse, it says a positive response to any of the following 7 statements was determined whether the female was emotionally abused. And this is 1, he restricts your contact with family or friends. 2, he prevents you from getting or keeping a job. What the fuck? 3, he always insists on knowing who you are with and where you are. 4, he stops you from talking or looking at other men, and he restricts the clothes you wear. 5, he often calls you mean names or says things to put you down or make you feel bad about yourself. 6, he takes your money or prevents you from knowing about or having access to the family income. And 7, he often makes you afraid of him. That's some deep shit.
Yeah, and we first want to stress that emotional abuse can happen to either gender, but today we obviously, our guest is a female, so she's going to talk about her experiences, but there are also men out there who have also been emotionally abused too, so like, yeah.
I happen to know a few, actually, so it, I think what you just read, that was kind of more geared towards women, for sure. But
I can't see a lady being like, you can't wear those shorts outside. Get your ass in here.
When it comes to
wardrobe,
yeah, I mean, you never know. It could be, you know, don't take your shirt off at the pool because girls are looking at you. But it's also, it can be a body shaming thing, like you know, women giving their men a hard time about having like a beer gut, or you know, like, you're letting yourself go, you better get that together, kind of thing. And then it's also, it can also be like if men in society sort of feel like they have to provide or be a certain way, and sometimes it's because women expect that of them, and you know, that's not necessarily not necessarily fair. And, you know, you never know when there's going to be a woman who's like, get a better job, or, you know, putting a lot of pressure on you. And, you know, that's still emotional abuse.
I agree to a degree. I think that depending on how you come across those things as a woman to a man,
it's all about delivery.
Right. I mean, if you're like a constantly, like, if you like put them down and make them feel bad about themselves, right, then no. But like, if you basically come, like, if you came and were like, hey, listen, I think we should get in shape, like, we as a unit, and, you know, for your health and my health.
But sometimes women say we, but they really mean you.
I guess, but I mean, like, I don't know. I guess it's really about, like, the delivery, like, you know.
No, definitely.
I mean,
yeah, it's
if you're constantly like,
yeah,
like, you are this or you're ugly, and like
a nagging Nancy, I was like,
I don't know. Yeah, it can be damaging to one's ego.
Right. Well, the stereotype about a woman nagging her husband that definitely toes the line of emotional abuse.
Right.
You know? So it exists in both ways. I think men are just less likely to talk about it. It's easier for them to go down to the bar with their friends and just be like, oh, she was nagging me again. And
and then they all cope as a group. They're like, yup, freaking Sandy.
I know, right?
You know, or whatever. Yeah.
Women, man.
I know, and then like, all right, guys, and then like that's it, and then they just like deal with it. But.
Yeah, I think it depends on like how damaging it is to them. I think it becomes like abusive when it starts to like mess with your psyche and mess with your being of, you know, survival. I just think that it's a more prevalent thing that you see in like relationships between men and women, like on the women's side, you know, whether it be, I don't know, it could be pretty much anything. I've had friends tell me like, he won't let me wear this, or he doesn't want me to dye my hair a certain color. And to me, that's absolutely fucking insane. Like, if someone told me, like, you have to dye your hair blonde or something, I'd be like, bye, gotta go. You gotta go, bye. But I haven't always had that strong mentality. So, but with certain things, I can. With other things, you know, I guess it's a little bit different of a story. But like stuff like that, like if you were telling me like what to wear and what color my hair should be and who I can go out with and who I can't, like that becomes that's like a really shady area.
Well, yeah, it's exactly. Thank you for saying shady area, because there is a fine line, because like there can be like, I could be like, oh, like let's say like, oh babe, I want to like dye my hair blonde. Let's say that. I'm like, nah, but like, yo, you look good with that brunette though. Right. You know, like there's the thing that's not abusive. It's not like I'm saying like, yo, if you freaking change to blonde.
This girl told me that she used to like have like blonde highlights in her hair, and her husband now basically told her, you can't do that. And like, don't wear those skirts, or don't wear, you know, this or that, you know. And she said that she's always worn them. That's like how when she met him, like that's what she wore. Like she wears like pencil skirts, like business skirts, business skirts or pencil skirts now, just so you know. And like he told her like, you can't wear that, and like it's to the point where. And this is when I know like somebody's in an abusive relationship, when they tell me I can't do this because he's gonna get mad, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like I've never said that. I've had different forms, which we'll get into, I guess. But when someone says like I can't do something because he said so, I'm like, okay.
let that be me.
I was like, you're clearly not Sicilian. And I mean, that doesn't mean that I don't like respect my man when I have one. Like that doesn't mean that I don't respect him, or that I disrespect him, or that, you know, I want to go out and be flagrant, and, you know, because I understand what it means to be someone's woman and be respectful to him and to yourself. But if you're like sitting here saying you can't wear that, or you have to do this, or
putting restrictions,
right? Your shirt's too low cut. I'm like, dude, they need to breathe. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that would drive me insane, and like maybe somebody would catch a case, me or him. I don't know. It'd be bad business. Somebody better have bail money.
I think. Well, what what you just described is very. It's a lot of what's the word?
Machismo.
No, it's regarding a lot of like physical things, like
right.
wardrobe and hair, and there are definitely a lot of men who feel threatened by their women wearing too like revealing clothing and that kind of stuff. But I think in my experience, actually, it was sort of the opposite. I had a lot of freedom to dress how I wanted and look who I wanted, and if I was wearing something kind of revealing, he actually liked it. Even in public, he liked showing me off and that kind of thing. So that sounds, on the surface, that kind of thing sounds pretty healthy and normal and fine. But then sometimes it's more of the psychological things about like behavior and, not liking it if you act a certain way, or it's not even like, when the way that you act in public is different than the way that you act like in privacy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, with me, I guess that was a lot about intellect and, just him assuming he was smarter than me and, putting a lot of pressure on me to be better and just improve like my, I guess certain behavior and attitudes and that kind of thing, which is, it's one thing if you're being supportive to somebody and you're trying to say like, hey, I want you to be the best you can be and that kind of thing. And, but then it's another thing entirely to, make somebody feel like crap for not being a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of thing, it's a lot less likely that you're going to hear your friends say like, I wish I had a better example, but if you hear your friends say like, oh, I can't like say that word anymore because
so-and-so will get mad. Like so-and-so thinks it's stupid.
It's it's like, oh, well, I have to try to, read this book because it will impress him, that kind of thing.
Oh, hell no.
And then, but then it's, sometimes you won't know. Like in my case, it was, everything was very much below the surface. So people didn't really know that it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very different kind, I think. Sometimes if you don't know that you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, you don't know that you're supposed to leave. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And to go back with both your points about like the dress and stuff like that, and not defending men, but just to give the male perspective, and I'm pretty sure you guys already know, but the reason why like the guy is so like, yo, you better not wear that, because he knows how other guys think.
Right, but this is the thing that's an insecurity in men.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
I'm just putting it out there for you.
Yeah.
I know I'm just saying.
Oh, no. Absolutely it is. Because, like, he's thinking about, like, like, yo, I mean, I know my girl looks good because I got her. So, like, so he's going to be like, yo, as soon as she goes out there, some dude is going to maybe try to holler. Not to say that, like, he can't trust her. Or maybe he thinks that too. But he's like, nah, some other dude is going to be looking at what I have at home. And, nah, we're not doing that. So, cover everything up. You're going to be a librarian today, so like.
Right. I just don't see what part of that is okay, though.
Oh, no. None of it is okay. Like, I get it, but none of it is okay. Like,
right.
No, not at all.
I remember I was telling the story to somebody the other day because we were talking about being, like, honest in a relationship. And I had one relationship, which I guess, like, I don't know. I just have a hard time swallowing that it was an emotionally abusive relationship. But as a person who spent X amount of money on grad school, I know that it was. And as much as I don't want to admit it to myself, I learned in that relationship to be very honest about everything. But like often his honesty like broke me. But I guess in the end it made me a stronger person. But it really did break me. And I really wish that he had a smoother way of being honest. Like, it would start with, like, little things. Like, at first, like, I remember I was, like, my first apartment. We were all going to a club. And I was wearing some, like, shirt. And it was very low cut. And I said to him, I was like, do I look okay? And I know you're never supposed to ask a guy that. And but I guess I wasn't even asking him, like, babe, do you think I look all right? I was like, do I look okay? And he was like, you look like a whore. I was like, what? And he was like, I think you look good, but you look like a whore. I'm like, okay.
And that's when you should own it and be like, damn right
I know. At the time, I was like super young. I probably was like 24. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to change. I was like, fuck you too, bitch. And then like, we broke up. And then I dated him again. And then it just got worse. And then like things would happen. Like one day he went out. And he was supposed to go to a Christmas party or something for his job in Jersey City. And he came home. Well, he called me while I was on my way home. I still remember, like, you know, you remember certain weird things, like where you were. I was, like, driving on the parkway, and I was headed back to the house. And he was, too, and I was going to get him from the train. And I was like, oh, how was the party? He's like, I didn't go. I was like, well, what do you mean you didn't go? And I wasn't, like, asking him to report to me or anything. And he's like, I didn't go. I just decided to go to Hoboken and get a couple drinks. I was like, by yourself? And he's like, well, I met some people. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I said to him jokingly, I said, so what, did you get any numbers? And he's like, no, but I gave some girl mine. She was cool. I was like, wait, what? He's like, she knows I live with my girlfriend. I'm like, this is getting weird. And, you know, that was like the beginning of it. And like, I just didn't know how to handle it. And it would progressively get worse to the point where like we'd fight sometimes a lot. And I remember one night, like in particularly, I was like drained and just, I don't know, I had nothing left in me. And I was sitting in front of him trying to talk to him. Literally for like a half hour. And I was like, just say something, explain this to me. I'm trying to talk to you. I'm very much like, let's talk it out. And literally for like a half hour, 40 minutes, he would say nothing. He wouldn't even open his mouth. And I'm hysterical. I'm crying. I'm like distraught. And then finally he opens his mouth and says, I haven't said anything because I have nothing to say to you. And I just like crumbled. I was just like, yo, motherfucker. And I still stayed and like dated him for maybe a year after that. Once he told me, I don't love you. He's like, and I just think it's because I don't know how to love. Because if I was meant to love anyone, I should love you, but I don't. And I was just like, okay. And it was those were like very subtle things, but they were like very much things that like, you should have worked out and kept to yourself. And they like kind of just broke me a little bit each time. But at the end, like once he left finally, thank God, because I don't know. I'm hoping that one day I would have left.
You would have.
I hope so. I really do.
It may have taken a while, but you would.
It was taking a really long time. Like I was just like, we can fix this. I know we can. But eventually, like, he left. And we never spoke again. And he hates me for some reason, which is fine. But, like, just the things that happened in that relationship were just, like, borderline crazy. Like, he woke up one morning and told me he wanted to, like, fuck my best friend. Just because he was, like, looking for an out and, like, a way to start a fight. But he was, like, doing it to, like, be hurtful. You know, and later on he admitted, like, yeah, I said it because he's like, well, she's hot, but I know she's crazy, but I just said it because I wanted to like cause a fight, you know? And like when we would go out with like his friends, he would be like very reserved and quiet. And then his friends would be like, he's only like that around you. I'm like, well, that's funny because he's not like that when he was with only me. Like when he's with only me, he's a whole different person. And they're like, well, when he's with only me, he's a whole different person too. I'm like, okay. So then it got to the point where his friends were like, we don't like your girlfriend, leave her at home. And he was just like, sorry, you can't come, they don't want you. And he would just be straight up about it. And I was like, do you not like have any like defending, you have no bones in your body that like want to defend you or us? And there was none at all. So that was like the beginning of like, you know, minor emotional abuse in a relationship. And I was still young, so I didn't know any better, I guess.
That's not minor emotional abuse. That's emotional abuse.
Thank you for I'm like sitting in my seat. I'm like, what? Why is she like downplaying it? That's not minor.
Like, but that's the tendency is to try to downplay it because you don't want to play the pity card. It's very much of like, well, but he does it because it's like this, and it's like really not that bad, and you don't know him like I do, and like that kind of thing.
Yeah. I've been in a relationship that I was like, oh, that was emotional abuse. I mean, me and the other guy, like, we'll call him Brooklyn for the sake of argument. He and I lasted a very long time, but it was to the point where people were like, what are you gonna do? Do you want to marry him? And I was like, no. I was like, I just want to like date him forever and travel the world. I don't know. And in my head, I just thought that was a good idea. I had no idea. It was dumb.
It's not dumb. That sounds awesome.
And like, I don't know. Everyone was like, everyone liked him because he was a nice person to people. He just wasn't always nice to me.
It sounds so familiar.
So like, I don't know. Like, I guess to this day, I still have like a really hard time swallowing the situation. But I told the story a couple episodes ago about the guy who threw water on me in the restaurant because I asked him about his phone. But there was other incidents where he would like scream and get in my face. He threw a water bottle at me once. I would call him like sick and upset, and he like would not come. And he lived like right down the street. Like, he would not come and bring me like ginger ale, and like he would just like play mad games to the point where like I was always crying, and my friends were like, you need to leave him. And like my one friend literally told me, she's like, I'm not talking to you anymore. Like, she's like, I'm sorry. She's like, I love you, but I just don't want to talk to you if we're talking about him. I just can't. And I never really understood it until recently with my friend who was supposed to be on the show. Like, every time she would call me about something her boyfriend did, I'd be like, yo, I don't want to fucking hear it anymore. Not because I don't love her and because I didn't want her to be happy, but because I've already told you that you're being abused and you don't see it. And as a friend, I think you get very frustrated and
that you're not seeing it on her side.
The person's not seeing it. Because I knew that things were bad when I dated the guy with the water. I knew that things were really bad. And I knew that, like, he was a bad person for me. And at the time, and I do think it has a small part to do with it. Like, at the time, his father had just died. And he didn't know how to handle it. So everything was like an outlash at me. And it was like, we had to do what he wanted to do, or the day was going to be a fucking disaster. Like, the only time we had a good time was when we went on vacation together. But as soon as we got back to New Jersey, like, it was like night and day. I don't want to be here anymore. Take me home. Do this. I want to do this. And I was like, yo, what happened to the guy I was on vacation with? Who was like holding my hand and walking on the fucking beach with me? Where did he go? And he was like night and day. And I was like, oh, we're back to asshole again, I guess. You know, and I think that's the thing when you're in those relationships is that obviously these people have a portion of good in them.
Yeah.
And you see that. And then you kind of get to the point where you're like, but he did this for me today and he's so wonderful. We had such a good time. And you thrive off of that moment.
Yes.
Like, that moment is your fucking golden ticket to the chocolate factory.
Yeah, that 5% is like all that you see.
Right. That's all that you exactly.
Well, that's what I've often said to people when I'm trying to explain emotional abuse and that kind of thing. It's sometimes the abuse only happens 10% of the time. You know, in a relationship, 5 to 10%. So, you know, on paper, that's 90%. That's a lot of good stuff.
Right.
You know, where you guys have a lot in common and there's a lot to talk about and you have fun together. But if what happens in that 10% of the time changes your behavior 100% of the time,
right,
where you start walking on eggshells because you don't want another outburst and you're trying to keep it down to 10%, then that's still a problem. If you can't be yourself because you're afraid of someone lashing out at you, and then, you know, it doesn't matter how often it happens. If it's changing you, then yeah, it's a problem.
So I think one of the articles that we're going to post to the site was from liveboldandbloom.com. And it gives you 30 signs as if if you get through the first 10, you're on shore.
Well, but I'm saying, I mean, you know, but you gave a good.
You might not find it.
You gave a good example about you staying in a relationship for far too long.
Apparently, I didn't get some of the signs. I was like, he was just a weirdo.
Do you want to read? Do you want to read the first 10?
Yeah, I am. I actually just
okay.
opened up the site. So number 1 is they humiliate you, they put you down, or make fun of you in front of other people. I've seen that happen to people.
Me, hands up.
And it makes me uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me really uncomfortable. My friend's fiance did it.
Mm-hmm.
Like in front of her, like in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And like I have a big mouth about things.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to be like, yo, what the fuck is your problem?
Yeah.
But I was like,
I have friends who have stepped in for me like that. Like, you know, there were points where I guess I've blocked a lot of it out, so I don't remember the specifics. But you know, like he'd call me, like tell me that I was like being stupid or something, and you know, it would be something that I'd be used to hearing, so I would just kind of, you know, brush it off. But then my friends would be like, "Dude, really?" Or someone would be like, "Yo, don't talk to her like that." Or you know, someone would say something, and then I'd be like, "Oh, huh, okay."
Back in episode 11 with our guest Polly Games, remember he was telling you that the woman that he was trying to see, she was very abusive, and she would degrade him in front of people.
Right.
And even worse was that after, let's say she had sex with somebody, let's say she was seeing somebody and have sex with somebody, if they weren't to her liking, she would degrade that person on his performance and was
Jesus.
like you're the worst and whatever and blah blah blah. So
your back shot game is whack. Like,
your back shot game is whack.
I don't know.
Like, God,
how does that conversation go? I'm just curious.
No, but
number 2.
Yeah, number 2.
Yes.
No, but she is emotionally abusive, and that's not good.
Yeah, definitely not.
So, but yeah, number 2.
Number 2 is they regularly demean or disregard your opinions, ideas, suggestions, or needs. So that's like, babe, I really want Italian tonight. Like, we ain't fucking eating that shit. Bye.
Well, it's also like, you know, if he or she or the abuser has some kind of conflict going on in their life, and you're trying to help them,
right.
And then they just brush the suggestion off because they assume it's not good enough. They, you know, like, yeah, whatever, it's not going to work. So it's like, you know, they talk to you about it just because they want to bitch about it, but then they don't actually care what your opinion is. And yeah, that happens. Number
3 is a lot like number 1, but it says using sarcasm or teasing to put you down or make you feel bad about yourself. So you might think it's like a joke, like, or they're just being playful, but it's at your expense. So that sucks. Oh, number 4, this is the big one. They accuse you of being too sensitive in order to deflect their abusive remark. Agree? Disagree?
Agree. It doesn't happen all the time, though. But yes,
I think definitely. In more severe, like very severe situations, I've seen that. Like, oh, you're so sensitive. I'm like, no, you're an asshole.
Well, yeah, if you feel bad about something they've said, and then they said you're just being too sensitive about it, so you feel worse about it because you felt bad about something they said, and then oh crap, and now I'm sensitive on top of that.
Yeah, so. I can't even take it. You know, like yeah, so it's just like damn.
Yeah, but it toughens you up though.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does. They try to control you or treat you like a child. I guess that's like along with what we were saying before about like you can't wear your hair that color or wear that outfit or whatever. They correct or chastise you for your behavior. It's kind of like along the lines of what you were saying before, Bridget.
Yes.
You feel like you need permission to make decisions or go out somewhere. Oof. That one bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up, Martini.
No, I'm saying because you said like, it before.
Like, first of all, like I've talked to my friends who are married and they'll say like, let me just check with so-and-so. And I understand that. I get it. Your unit. You need to make sure that that other part of your unit knows what's going on.
Right.
I get that. That's the whole unit team relationship respect that I was talking about.
Right. Especially if you have kids. Like
absolutely, if you have kids. The whole like so-and-so said I can't go out tonight. He said what?
Right.
Well, invite him. Maybe then you can go. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it could kind of be the opposite though, because in my situations, I didn't really have to report what I was doing mostly because he just didn't give a shit. Where,
yeah,
you know, like he wasn't even interested.
Shut up, Martini.
I was pointing to you because I remember in the podcast before we were talking about how like you kind of want that jealousy, that little smidgen of jealousy, like because you want that person to care. You want to be like, babe, I'm going out to whatever, and then you know if he's like, all right, whatever, and then you're like, but I'm going out.
You at least want them engaged and interested in what you're doing.
Yeah. You want them to care. Just
right.
like, oh, babe, where you going and stuff like that.
Right.
I was like, oh, he cares.
Right.
But like, if he doesn't care, like,
I had this friend. She's now married and she has kids, so he's not with him anymore. But her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, thank God, he was a cutie, but he was crazy. Everywhere she went, this little lamb came along. Like we had a job together. We worked for Mad Science, which is like an after school program thing. Yeah. So we would go like after school and do science experiments with kids. This motherfucker showed up. I made him carry our stuff. But I was like, why is he here? And she was young, so she didn't know any better. Mm-hmm. She was like 19 at the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why is he here?
Yeah.
She's like, he's everywhere. He thinks I'm gonna like cheat on him. I'm like, we're working.
That's crazy.
And like we went once, like it was like girls' night, and we all went to like do ceramics. He had to drop her off. Why?
Wow.
Yeah.
Like he was everywhere.
Right. Is she banging? Not that I'm defending him.
She's a pretty girl, but
no, because I'm saying then he must be like super. Well, he's obviously super insecure, but
he was like super hot. I don't know what he was so insecure about. Mm-hmm. He was also really a psycho, and I think she never really fully admitted. I mean, obviously they were in an abusive relationship, but like I really feel like there was like other types of abuse going on there because he seemed like he was the type to get to like in a jealous rage.
Maybe he was just super lonely.
Yeah, okay. Maybe he was just super crazy.
Well, but so like I was saying about on the other side, how they just don't care what you're doing kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Then that's the kind of thing where they're not going to let you know what they're doing at all. Yeah. So, if you don't hear from them for a while and you're worried about them, and it's not like in a relationship that I would need somebody to check in all the time and let me know what they're doing. But then, if you find out like, oh, he was, gone with like a whole group of people that you didn't know, and like just doing things that you don't generally approve of, and that kind of thing is just just it's not just a lack of communication, but just a complete lack of compassion sometimes.
Number 8 is they try to control the finances and how you spend money. I was thinking about my parents. Like, I think back in the day, my mom told me a story about how my dad cut up her credit cards. Like, now my mom's kind of like the breadwinner of the family, so that doesn't happen anymore. But when I hear that, I always think about that. I don't know that was exactly what was going on, other than the fact that my mom probably had a spending problem, because she does now. But now she makes the money, so no one can tell her to shit. So she's like, I make the money, I do what I want. And I feel like I've inherited that spending problem. Oh my God. But yeah, I can see that. Like, I was just thinking about cultural, like some cultures are very like controlling of their women, and I don't know that they would consider this emotional abuse, but it is.
Or as opposed to just it being culturally
I'm not gonna like name
acceptive.
culturals because like I don't want to like shout anybody out, and they'll be like, no, we're not like that. Mm-hmm. But like y'all know what I'm talking about.
You know who you are.
You know who you are.
Right.
Some culture, help me on that word. Cultures. Yeah, I'm like da. Mm-hmm. Some cultures are very, male dominated, where the man does everything with the finances and the woman has to like stay home, cook and clean. And granted, times have changed and women are like go-getters now and do all that stuff, and that doesn't happen as much, but I can see that can be a problem. And number 10 is they try to make you feel as if they're always right and you are always wrong. I think I missed one. No. I did.
Oh, yeah.
I did.
Number 9.
Which is important. They belittle and trivialize you. God, I can't read today. Your accomplishments or your hopes or your dreams. Our friend who was on the podcast, Noble, this is one of my biggest arguments with him, because I don't know why, but in his cockamania brain, he feels that like people who have gone to college are stupid. So like I remember he came to my grad school graduation party, and he was just like, whatever. Where's the burgers? Like, he didn't feel like it was an important accomplishment.
Right.
And, like, I guess that bothered me a little bit. I was just like, hey, this was a lot of fucking work. And I am so grateful that it's over.
Yeah.
So that was definitely one of those things.
Yeah.
And I can see in being in a relationship with someone, you can be like, I feel super good about this. And they're like, yeah, cool story, bro. Get the sandwich.
I remember, so I dated this guy for a really long time. We started when we were in high school. And it's in New York, so there are all these standardized tests that you have to take at the end of the year. And we both took the same English exam. And he was always like an exceedingly smart person, like freaking brilliant. And but there was one test that I did better than him on. I think I'd gotten like an 88 and he got like an 87 or something like that. I don't know. I did a little bit better than him, and he freaked out. He was so upset that he hadn't done better. But the reason he was upset was because I had done better.
And he couldn't just say,
yeah, it wasn't
good job.
It wasn't a congratulations. It was like when he heard my score, he was like, oh, well, that's bullshit. And, trying to be like, he was trying to pick apart the test and figure out what he had done wrong. And it's one thing if his grade wasn't up to his standards, but because he wasn't that upset about it until he heard my grade, and right there, that just kind of solidified that he thought that he was better and smarter than me. And it was definitely, and that was really early in the relationship. You think I would have figured it out, but I guess not. So yeah,
I guess it's always those things. I know, like, I've had conversations with people and I've said, like, basically what I've said, because I've been in this situation, is, are you okay to live with this the rest of your life? Like the person who was going to come on the podcast, she would tell me, every holiday, he ruins every holiday. He's miserable every holiday. Like, he doesn't want to put up a tree. He doesn't want to do this. I'm like, do you want to do that?
But it's not so much that the person wasn't in the holiday spirit. It's just that she was. Like,
no, they weren't. It wasn't about. He just didn't care.
No, but that's what it is. It's not like, oh, if she didn't care about the holiday too, it's like whatever. But like she holidayed out. She loves like holidays, and he did not.
Right.
So it's just like.
So if you can't meet that compromise, then if it's a relationship needs to be about compromise sometimes. But if it's one person who's always doing the compromising, then it's not an even relationship at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, like, instead of just being like, leave him, I'd kind of be like, are you okay with this being your Christmases? These being your Valentine's days? Are you okay with that? If you're okay with that, and, like, I think as a therapist, those are the questions that they ask you when you do go to therapy, when you say, I'm in this relationship, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah, as opposed to just saying, like, the obvious, you turn it, like, okay, you want to do that. Are you all right with that?
Are you okay with this being it for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself those questions. And I think that it takes a very long time to climb out of that hole that you put yourself in. Well,
right.
You put yourself in and he put you in. No, you guys have put yourself in together.
Yeah.
Well, it's part of it is, when you ask that question, like, oh, are you okay with making that compromise kind of thing? Sometimes well, okay, so I will say that normally when when an emotionally abusive relationship begins, the victim is normally someone who's entered the relationship possibly already having really low self-esteem. Mm-hmm. So when the abuser starts, taking advantage and that kind of thing, then if someone, like someone says to the victim, is this something that you're okay with? Like, is this going to be okay for you? Sometimes their immediate response is like, well, yeah, because otherwise I'll lose him, and being like, well, yeah, of course I can make that compromise because he's worth it, or, that kind of thing.
Right.
And like, I'm willing to sacrifice things for myself and my own happiness to make him happy, that kind of thing. And if it's, that's why it's so hard sometimes to identify emotional abuse, because sometimes that's a good thing. If you're in a relationship and, it's a good relationship and you're like, if it's something like, okay, they got a really good job and it's their dream job and I love them, so I'll pack up my stuff and move with them, to be together. depending on everything else that's happening in the relationship, that could be a good sign or it could be a really bad sign. So you have to like look at the whole network and web of occurrences that are going on to figure it out.
And also too, it's like the bad thing is like the person will say, yeah, I'll do this to make them happy, but both people aren't happy. You know, like like both people in the relationship should be happy. That's what the compromise is. But it's like, no, I'll make them happy. So now that person gets to, gets the upper hand, gets to do whatever they want, and now the other person is just like suffering, but it's like, hey, it's okay because
I love him.
Yeah, or her, or whatever, and it's like, yay, this is great, and it's like, it's not though, because like you're like losing you. It's one thing to like give up things, like I'll give up cupcakes for him or whatever, blah blah, but like you're losing you, like, I'm not watching this anymore because he thinks it's stupid, or like I'm not doing Zumba anymore because he doesn't even like that word. It's dumb, no.
Yeah, but it's totally true. I mean, and then sometimes you don't even realize that you're doing it. If someone just says in passing, like, this is gonna sound really stupid, but like he just once in passing said that like he hated the show SpongeBob growing up or whatever, and not even thinking about it, it totally changed my mindset, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I don't like it either. And and it's like a really little thing, but it's like, and after we broke up and I was like so used to it, was just like someone said SpongeBob and my head was like, oh, I hate that show. But then, after we broke up and spent some time away from it, and like I saw like SpongeBob memes on the internet and people were quoting it, I was like, I love that show. I was like, that show was adorable and hilarious, and I can't believe I pretended I didn't like it. And so no, it's not like my love for the Nickelodeon show SpongeBob is like an integral part of who I am, but it's it's that whole kind of thing is just it's symbolic of the kind of hold that he had over me.
Always trying to appease.
I think that's the pattern that we fall into, is that we're always trying to, especially in an abusive relationship, you're always trying to like make the other person happy, but then you kind of have to reflect back and be like, well, am I happy? And you can't just be happy because you're with that person. Like, that's not enough. Like, it has to be bigger than that.
And I remember we lived probably like 15-20 minutes away from each other, and I would say in like the whole span of the time that we were dating, I spent way more time at his house than he did at mine. And it really just came down to who was willing to get in the car and make the trip and waste the gas. And it was always me, because it was like, I know he's not going to get off his ass and come here, so guess it's going to have to be me, or I'm not going to get to see him. And then, having to choose between making the effort and not seeing him. Of course, I'd always pick making the effort. And it's just, it's great to go out of your way for somebody you care about, but if you're never getting it back, then
that's the problem.
It's not okay.
So I found this article on WikiHow. I don't know that like it's a necessarily,
credible,
the Bible, but therapeutically, I did like what it said. And it basically said like how to deal with emotional abuse, and it gave you 2 methods. It says 1, handle your current situation, and 2 is to leave the relationship. So if you do, well, I mean, that's how you deal with it. You can leave.
Put up with it or leave.
Which is basically
that's why I was just like, oh, okay.
The woman's perspective and a man's perspective, I guess. But if you do method 1, it says to be aware of the emotional signs of abuse. So you have to understand what they are. We spoke about them. You can read them. 2 is to know your rights. Know that you have rights. It says these are your rights. Don't allow your partner to convince you otherwise. Number 3 is that realize that you cannot change your partner. I think that's the biggest misconception in a relationship. Maybe he'll change. He'll be better next time. Ugh. We talked about it. We'll get better. We talked and shut up. It didn't work.
No.
And I'm only saying this from someone who's been in the situation. Like, I'm not like ragging on it. If you are in the situation, like, I know you've probably heard all this before, but he's not going to change, unfortunately, or she's not going to change. People don't change unless they want to.
Right. The only way that they're going to change is if they say that they're going to. And, in my situation...
No, I don't even think that.
Well, in my situation...
You're so optimistic.
In my situation, he did say that he was going to change, and he'd maybe make an effort, and it would last for, 2 days, and then he'd go back to the way he was.
But those 2 days you loved. You were like, I love him again.
Right. And it was, but he seemed to think that saying he was going to do something was the same thing as actually doing it. So... just because, somebody expresses an interest in changing and improving doesn't mean that they're going to. So you have to, absolutely keep your eye on that, because I cannot tell you how many times he would have said, "You're right. I need to change. I'll be better." And then wasn't at all.
And a quick little thing is the reason why they don't change is because they don't have to, because the person stays.
Right.
So exactly. It's well, why do I need to, you're still here, so I guess I must be doing something right, quote unquote,
Yes.
So, okay.
You're totally right.
Number 4 says, don't retaliate, which I think is so important. It says, abusers are excellent manipulators, and they provoke you to the point of breaking, and they blame you for everything. Don't retaliate on digs, insults, or threats. While it may be hard to hold back your temper, remember that it's a trap, and that you may be the one suffering the consequences. This is so true.
Well, I don't know if I really understand that, because what's the alternative? Just sitting there and taking it?
No, I mean, I think it means, I've been to my breaking point before. I'm talking about, to the breaking point where, I'm not proud of this, but, I've ripped shirts and thrown things. I'm Sicilian. I have a bad attitude. I don't know. I've done, I would, that's the thing. You could throw things at me, but I'm going to fucking throw them back.
Right.
So, and you can sit there and tell me you want to fuck my best friend, but you're going to catch it. It's not going down. I'm not going to, at first I sat there. Well, at first I picked up the phone and called her. And I said, guess who said he wants to fuck you? And she was like, leave that motherfucker. And I was like, and then I thought that would shake him. It didn't. So then I ripped his shirt.
Well, so I guess, I don't know what.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Because you're telling a story.
The cops came. It was bad.
No, wow.
Oh.
Well, so I was going to say, there was...
I don't have a record.
There was one particular moment in our relationship that was sort of a turning point, because he did something that was really jacked up. I will say that. And it completely changed my attitude and my outlook, and basically I kind of dove into a depression, and I was really resentful, and I was really angry, but I was still in the relationship, and you could really go back and psychoanalyze that for probably years. But I know that was it was a big change in my attitude, because while for the most part I was just quiet, and I didn't say anything, and I didn't really do much of anything, but he noticed, of course, that I was upset. And I remember at one point, he asked me what was wrong. And then I explained, oh, I was just thinking about that stupid fucking thing you did. And and then he said something along the lines of well, I've already apologized, so I don't really know what else I can do to help you. You're on your own, basically.
Damn.
And, so I'd get really, I wasn't in a great place, and I would definitely lash out sometimes. And I straight up told him I hated him once. And then, he's like, does that make you feel better? Do you actually mean that? Do you believe that? Why are you still with me? And then I
why are you still with me?
And then I retracted it, and I was like, no, I guess you're right. I didn't mean it. And, to this day, I still don't think I ever hated him. But
just disliked highly what he did.
Yes, very severely disliked. So yes, go on.
Well, number 5 says recognize the long-term risks of an abusive relationship, and basically says it can contribute to physical problems, migraines, arthritis, obviously depression, like you said, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, alcohol and drug use, sexual abuse, sexual health issues such as increased risk of STDs. I didn't get that at first, but I guess I get it now.
Well, if you're less willing to protect yourself, if you're
you can be out there fucking the whole world.
Yeah, you're not using protection.
Or married. We don't know. I'm just saying. The world is crazy. Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I get that. And then number 6, which is the most important, it says reach out for support. I know a lot of times you talk to your friends and your friends just don't want to fucking hear it anymore. And I know in your head you think they're being a shitty friend. Yeah. They love you. And I didn't realize it until I was on the other end of the stick. You know, at like one point I was like, yo, I can't believe my friend abandoned me. Like, she didn't abandon me. Like, if I called her and I was like, yo, let's go for coffee and like sing karaoke in the car, she'd be down for it. But if I wanted to like cry to her about like what new thing asshole did, she'd be like, I don't want to hear it, I'm done.
Well, I can tell you for sure, I had a friend who was my best friend until this relationship started, and she eventually told me, well, actually she didn't tell me to my face, but she stopped talking to me completely, and she ended up telling other people who relayed it to me that she couldn't respect me for being in the kind of relationship that I was in. And I didn't understand it. I hated her. We didn't speak for years. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've reconnected with her recently, mostly because I was like, oh, fuck, she was right. Like, right. And, you know, she's apologized and said, like, you know, if I could have done something differently, because the irony of it all is that she stayed friends with him through the whole thing. And because, you know, I guess, and I still have friends who are friends with him. I mean, I guess in theory, I'm still friends with him. That, you know, just because he was a bad boyfriend doesn't mean he's a bad friend, mm-hmm. kind of thing. So people,
yeah,
you know,
that's true about both of my psychos too.
So she's like, if I could do things differently, he's the one I probably should have stopped talking to, and I should have, you know, tried to help you out. And I'm like, damn right, you should have, because no one told me.
Right.
I think it's just difficult. I mean, as a friend, you kind of like lose, like, not, it's not so much respect as much as it's like patience, like with the situation, like, because you know that person's not going to change, you know that your friend's not going to change, you know,
there's only so many times you can tell a person,
Molly girl, you in trouble,
right, until you're blue in the face. And then, you know, if they're going to keep, and I don't know, I think it's good to try to stay and be there for your friends as hard as it is, because if they can't talk to you about it, they're probably not talking to anyone about it.
Right.
And, I mean, that's like the one thing that I wish is, because like I've talked to my friends since the relationship ended, and they've been like, oh, hell yeah, that was emotional abuse. And I'm like, well, why didn't you say something to me?
Honestly, though, if somebody would have said something, what do you think you would have?
No, it may have ended it sooner. But no, you're absolutely right. People are going to do what they're going to do. And and no one, I think the problem is no one ever actually said the words emotional abuse to me. And if they had, I don't know, I probably would have been like, what? No. But, you know, I mean, sure, people did express concern sometimes, and been like, well, he's kind of a jerk. You're like, maybe you guys should break up, you know, that kind of thing. And that's when I would start defending him. So for sure, like, it's definitely, I don't know, it's tough because you want to say something, but I don't know. I would say if you're concerned about a friend, you should definitely say something, even if you know that they're probably not going to listen to you. It's just so that they know that at some point, if they start to make the realization that they know you already saw it, so you're probably a good person to talk to about it.
I would know that there were like certain people I could talk to, and then certain people who I was like, she don't want to hear it.
Right.
Well, like, I just knew.
For me, it was tough because I think we started dating so young that we ran in a lot of the same circles. So most of the people that I had to talk to about it were people that were very close with him as well.
Oh yeah, that's a little awkward.
But of course I did have a few friends that I had a few friends who knew him but weren't as close with him. But it was probably around the time that I made this one friend in college who did not know him at all. And we were actually going through very, very similar situations with both of our boyfriends. And so we were hanging out a lot, and we're basically like, we should break up with them, right? And actually, neither of us really did. We went on, you know, quote unquote breaks, you know, the open relationship nonsense, which, you know, sometimes you think, I mean, I guess it could fix a relationship. For us, it did not. So, but it's, yeah, I don't know. I would say, I know it's annoying to try to help a friend through that kind of thing. But do it. You should definitely do it anyway.
I was thinking about the conversation we were having previous to this, and we were trying to decide the male or female perspective of it.
Right.
But Martini, I said jokingly to you, actually, I said it quite serious, that because we asked Martini if he's ever been in an abusive relationship, and you were like, "Well, I've only been in like 2 major relationships."
Right.
Present company included.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the audience knows who. I mean, you and my ex-fiance. So.
And I was gonna, and I said to you, I said, "Well, I didn't emotionally abuse you, but I kind of did." Mm-hmm. Ooh. Martini was like, "I was waiting for that."
No, I was like, "Okay, go ahead."
The plot thickens.
No, because like as we talked about, I was young and dumb, and I broke up with you to go back out with Brooklyn to be in my emotionally abusive relationship. And I would pretty much call you to discuss it. And even though we didn't date for like a very, very long time, we dated for a significant amount of time. And I didn't really take into account how that would make you feel, I guess.
Right. Because
you're like, right.
No. No, because it's true. I always.
I mean, it's not in a relationship. Abusive. It's an abusive friendship.
Yeah, you can abuse friends too.
Emotionally abusive friendship.
Right. Because it was very interesting, and a lot of my friends would like look at me like, "Yo, you're a freaking sucker, man." And they're like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Yeah, because..."
Like, what am I doing?
No, because obviously if you put it on paper, I'm helping my ex-girlfriend with the person that she left me for.
Yep.
Continue in an abusive relationship. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, what is going on? And just because I don't even want to say like white knight, because I know that's freaking... even that term is being muddled in like internet and all that stuff, but like I was just being me. I was like, all right, I'm gonna help her out. What am I gonna do? And you can call me stupid, retarded, whatever, but I was helping you out. But like, yeah, I mean, it was I guess abusive, quote unquote, because at the same time this was happening, I was already with my now ex-fiance.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So yeah, you forgot about that. No, because that was the thing, and like she almost ruined that that relationship at the time, because I'd be like, yeah, she's calling me like you would call me like while I'm like driving, like let's say we were going not on a date, well, okay, fine, like on a date or something like that, and like you would call, and I'm like,
you shouldn't have picked up for me.
No, but that's the thing. No, but the thing in my head was like, oh, it's my friend. She needs help. Not like, oh, it's my ex. Blah, blah, and that whole thing. And then you should be like, what? Why are you gonna pick up the phone? I was like, she needs help. What? Like, why are you giving me that look for? But
well, I feel like there are 2 different kinds of people. There are people who can be friends with their exes and people who can't. And you fall into that first category for sure. So some people can separate the romance from the friendship. And I think that that's something you're capable of for sure. But it could, I think sometimes, wanting to kind of be there for someone who is like an ex or something like that can sometimes come from like almost, well, I don't know. This might sound bad, but like almost like a lack of self-worth kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, oh no, absolutely.
So, I don't know. I think that definitely falls into the abuse category.
No, definitely.
But that's the thing.
Sorry.
I think we're probably.
Was that not sincere enough?
No. Yeah. Sorry.
Whatever.
But you hit it, and you shouldn't feel bad about what you said, because that was a very good diagnosis, because I do sometimes feel, and I think, well, I believe Jennifer knows this, is like I do feel at times that I do suffer from like self-worth. Like I know who I am and I know what I am worth, but if if no one is not recognizing it, then that's when I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I want to matter to somebody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, I guess that's why I always, I guess that's why I always reach out to people. And, well, not even reach out to people. That's why people know that they can reach out to me.
Don't worry.
Yes.
He got me back for everything.
Oh, did you?
That's a whole other podcast.
Well, like I was saying before, it's,
I guess that's why I'm like always like reliable. That's one of like the traits that people say like, yep, Martini's always reliable. But I think that's what it is because I'm searching to matter to somebody.
Sure.
You know, so.
But I think that we all do emotionally abusive things. Like I would say that towards the end of my relationship with my ex, it definitely, like I was probably dishing it out a little bit at the end too, just because I was so fed up and frustrated and felt trapped. So I think, just because you've exhibited those qualities at some point doesn't necessarily mean that the actual relationship was abusive. Right. I think it's like I was saying before, there's kind of like that network of occurrences that surround it, that can take one like smaller thing, and blow it up to be something bigger if it's, surrounded by a bunch of other shitty things that you've done, Mm-hmm. So I think it's, as long as for the most part you've been a good person.
Yeah. I mean, I like to believe though.
Like I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, you were definitely like an abuser. Because sure, I mean, like we're human. It's just about whether or not you can train yourself and learn to keep things in check and engage in a give and take kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So just another article that I had found on goodtherapy.org, just in case you were not still sure if you fell into this category. It just said a person's behavior may fall into the category of emotional abuse when the behavior in question does not stop or even pause when the recipient begins crying or asks for time to cool down. In fact, the abuse may escalate as the recipient of the abuse becomes more vulnerable and upset. It also says the behavior is frequent and occurring several times in a month or less. Vulgar language, insults, demanding languages are used or baseless accusations are made. Arguments, quote unquote, are one-sided. One person does all the talking, never listens, and is not kind to the other. Threats of violence are made. The person who is abusive does not apologize. The person who is abusive will not recognize the validity of anything his or her victims say. Sexual or physical abuse is also present. So, I mean, other than the bottle throwing situation, that was not nice. And the water throwing situation. I think that was more scary than anything. I think I was just scared.
Right.
And that's when I knew, like, this is bad. He's scared. Someone has scared me. Shit. We're not in a good place right now, buddy.
Yeah.
And, like, I actually felt nervous. So I think that's, like, when I've heard people say, like, oh, like, I feel like I walk on eggshells around him.
Yes, that's definitely like the key phrase.
That's the key phrase. And that's like, it's time to go.
Right. I remember, so my relationship never got physically abusive. I mean, maybe borderline sometimes. But he had quite a bit of a temper. And I remember this one time so there was this wonderful thing that he liked to do where he wanted me to come over to sit there and watch him play video games.
Wasted talent.
I'm just thinking back on why the fuck I would do that.
To spend time,
right? And it was like like the alternative was to, I don't know, it was just so annoying. But anyway, he was playing a game with his Wii, and he was not wearing
the video game system, not his penis.
Well, I mean, he did that too sometimes, but not in this instance.
Right.
He did not have the like safety cord thing around his wrist, and I remember he lost a boss battle, and was so upset that he chucked the Wiimote. It ricocheted off the floor and it smacked me in the hand, and like it was bad. Like it was very painful, and he like instantly felt horrible about it. And so I know that like, he never would have inflicted the physical abuse on me, but that he, could have potentially been capable of it. I don't know. I don't want to like make that accusation or anything.
Right. Yeah.
But there was totally a point to me bringing this up.
You'll find it.
It'll get to
I will.
you.
It's right
You'll
there.
find it.
What were you saying right before I started talking?
About the physical and sexual abuse, that sometimes there's physical and sexual abuse.
I didn't experience
and,
either of
and
those.
the water. Somebody scared. Somebody finally scared her.
Well, so he definitely had a temper, and just definitely the walking on eggshells thing. I feel like there was a very specific point I was going to make, but well, maybe it'll come back to me later.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, one thing that you did say that was interesting. Obviously you can't take the test right now, but have you ever heard of the 5 love languages?
Maybe.
Okay, well, there's this thing about the 5 love languages because I'm interested.
I was like Italian, French.
That was awesome, but that's not it.
This is a quiz.
No, it's because on our last podcast we were talking about the 5 love languages because every person has a language, a specific language that they speak, and they all inhabit 5 love languages, but one of them is the highest one, and that's the one that you are most receptive as. And I wanted to know which one do you think it would be, because her and I took a test about it, and we found out what we were, and I want to know if you would know just like offhand. But the 5 are words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. So what do you think out of those 5 would be yours?
Well, I would say it's a lot different now than it would have been. Mm-hmm. I think in my past relationship was probably either the words of affirmation or the gifts thing. Mm-hmm. Now I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't really dated seriously since, mm-hmm. So it's hard to say.
Do you feel that your past relationship experience has influenced that decision not to date?
Absolutely. It's made me. I'm very apprehensive and untrusting, especially of the male type of person.
I have to say, like, I don't know. After those bad relationships, I was actually, me and my ex didn't work out, but he's a good person. We had a good relationship. If anything, he'd probably tell you I was mean to him sometimes. It's not true.
You are Sicilian.
Yeah, he knew how to push my buttons. So there was that. But it definitely, all of the stuff that I went through made me stronger, like you were saying. Like, you're definitely a stronger person on the flip side. But being in a better, healthier relationship, even though it didn't work just because we want different things, our end game is different. It was a good experience. I think I needed to have it. Like, I think I needed to go through that relationship because, I needed to know that there's good people out there.
Right. Well, I did. So, similar to that, I tried online dating a little bit, and the first person that
it's so confusing.
It's like I was telling Martini once, it's like having a second job trying to manage all of that. But there was this one guy that I went on maybe 3 or 4 dates with, so I don't consider that like a serious thing at all. But I honestly, eventually I broke it off because he was too nice. And it sounds horrible, but I was genuinely freaked out by it. And I feel really bad for kind of dropping the ball on that. But it's, I was coming from like a really dark place where I was just used to not being appreciated or, respected. But, there was this guy who was like opening doors for me and, offering to, pick up the tab at meals. And I remember this, I've probably told Martine this story like a million times, but there was, we were walking down a sidewalk.
Jennifer will appreciate this. Go ahead.
Okay. We were walking down a sidewalk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like March or something, so there was like that like crappy like black snow on the sidewalks, and it was like taking up half the sidewalk in one spot. And I was so used to, with my ex, like just letting him go first for anything. I stopped walking to let him walk ahead of me to go down this sidewalk. And he stopped and he looked at me like I was crazy. And he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What?" And he's like, "No, go ahead." So I started walking, and then he walked in the snow so that he could keep walking next to me. And I had never had a guy do that for me before. And so I'm sure, like, you know, if you hear that kind of thing, you're thinking like, "Oh my God, he sounds like a keeper." Like, you know, he was a really great guy. And it just, but I was like, it was just so unsettling and confusing for me. And I just wish I'd met him a little bit later after I'd like was done freaking out.
Honesty is the best policy. You might, I know we talked briefly a little bit before. I mean, maybe if you hit him up and just be like, "I wasn't ready then. I just wasn't," you know?
That's what I told him when I, you know, kind of broke things off. I was like, "I thought I was ready to do this, but I'm not." And you know, like let's stay friends. And then he dated somebody, and I have tried to reach out to him, but I also don't want to be like too in his face about it either. So
maybe a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta be a little aggressive. No? Yes?
Oh, I don't know. Dating's so scary. I don't want to do it.
Dating's so scary.
I'm just like, arrange it. Somebody arrange it. I just want my mom to come here and be like, "This is your husband." And I'm like, "Thank you, Mom."
Well, they do have that
some
show.
Some cultures have that.
Well, no, they do have that. They do have that show.
Unfortunately, mine's not one of them. But trust me, my mom already tried to hook me up with somebody, and it ended in a restraining order. So let's just go.
They do have that show, Married by
I'm not
Mom and
lying.
Dad. Dumb.
Yeah. See what happened when I let my mom.
Well, you need to let both your parents on board.
No, but well, my dad doesn't like anybody, so it doesn't matter.
My parents would do a horrible job picking a person for me.
My mom was like,
sure.
"He's so nice." I'm like, "Yeah."
I'd let my sister pick a boyfriend for me though. That's okay.
Oh, maybe
she would do a good job.
But I mean, I don't. I think emotional abuse is one of those things that you don't find out in a relationship until you're like deep into it. I don't think it's something that happens like in the dating phase. I think it's something that happens in like the nesting phase.
Oh yeah.
So, and that's like the worst part about it, because you can meet like what you think is Prince Charming, and then you're like, "He's great, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And you're like, "What did I do?" And then you're like, "Oh, here we go." And then by then you're like too in love to like just be like,
you can't tell the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
And
well, like I said,
so
it's
subtle.
Like 90% of the time, it's probably fantastic.
peaches and cream.
Yeah, but then it's just that one little thing that'll happen maybe once a week that'll just make you change the way you act for the rest of the time. And I would say to anyone who's not really sure whether or not they're in that kind of situation, if you feel like you've had to make a dramatic change to your behavior when you're around them, then it's time to step back and reevaluate what's going on.
Or you have to walk on eggshells.
Yeah.
Or you're like constantly calling your friend like, "I'm so upset."
Well, I don't know. For me, I didn't tell anyone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, I mean, people, I guess, I don't know. People will probably pick up on things if I mention them in passing, but it was only if we had like a really big fight that I would talk to people, but I kept a lot to myself.
Because you probably thought it was nothing.
Yeah. And I think it's because I entered the relationship probably not in the greatest mental place either. And I was 16 when we started dating. So I was,
Oh, Jesus.
yeah, I was when we were together for like 7 years. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was, you know, I went into it as like a stupid, scared kid. And then I came out of it as like a stupid, scared adult because I didn't get to like really grow in that time frame.
Mm.
Do you think you've grown now?
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
I think I've grown more since that relationship ended than I probably have in my entire life.
And
so I had some catch up to do.
That's definitely the most important part, is that all of your relationships, that you take something from it, and usually, hopefully, something good. Like, you know, unfortunately, you have to turn the negative into a positive. It's like something shitty really happened. But moving forward, I'm not going to let it happen again. I remember after I got out of that bad relationship, I dated somebody else, and I started to see things that reminded me of the last relationship. And I literally said, I've learned that if something is not good for me, I need to walk away from it. I was like, and I feel like I need to walk away from this. And we pretty much broke up at that point. And I was just like, I'm seeing this again. I'm not fucking doing this again. Not me. Right. Not doing it. No.
Well, yeah. And then people, I mean, I'm sure it's like no mystery that people tend to gravitate towards certain particular people.
Right.
You know, like girls going for the bad boy kind of thing. And I've been warned about that kind of thing so much that it's like, you know, people like, you know, that I so much expect to go for the same kinds of people that I just avoid people because I just assume that they're like, okay, if I'm into you, you're probably horrible. Right. And I don't know. I should be able to tell myself that I've changed enough since then that it's not going to be an issue, but it's, you know, it's still a hurdle that I'm trying to jump over.
You'll get there. We all do. And it takes time.
No, it definitely takes time. But I did want to read this article, and this might sound like tough love or that I'm like trying to like victim blame or anything like that, but it's totally not. It's from this article, and it's called "The Straight Up Truth About Why You're Miserable in Your Relationship." And basically, I mean, it's a really long article, but I've only got like a couple snippets of it because it's pretty much talking about accountability about the victim and like the victimee, or however you would say it, you know, like
the
abuser.
Yeah, thank you. I'm like,
I know there's a word. Abuser.
I was like, I know there's a word, but we've talked about how people can be extremely abusive, but sometimes that person can, well, not, I don't want to say can just leave like it's easy. I know it's not easy, and we've learned today from our two women here that sometimes they know like far too late, and they need people to like really like, you know, like shake them by the shoulders and be like, hey, you need to freaking like get out of here and stuff like that. So this article is pretty much about that, and I don't really like the link's name is theproblimismen.com. So
yes, sorry.
Yeah, so
Martini's face just now.
So I'm gonna read.
Was that too strong of a reaction? Sorry, I'll tone it down.
I'm gonna read this. Pretty much it goes. I'm gonna tell you why your relationship sucks. It's because you're with an asshole. They might not have started out that way, but they are one now. And guess what? You're still with them. Accountability can be a bitch sometimes, you know? To the men who complain with statements like, my old lady changed when we got married. Really? You didn't see that warning? You didn't see the warning signs? You didn't notice her change? You didn't notice her change her behavior when you stopped taking her out, or when you quit putting real effort into seducing her? When you stopped all the little things she loved so much? And by the way, when you call her old lady, she might start being an asshole, with good reason. To the women who say, I just don't get it. Why does he treat me like shit when I'm so good to him? A better question to ask yourself is, why are you still with him if he treats you like shit? Assign your value to something other than a man's opinion of you. Accept and love yourself for a change. To the men who bitch that their girlfriends and wives stop going down on them a few years into the relationship, try shaving those matted pubic dreadlocks once in a while. You think your girl wants to get close to that shih tzu you have on your lap? And while you're down there, do a sit-up or two. Take some pride in your appearance, for fuck's sake. To the women who wonder why he stopped putting in effort, perhaps he's following your lead. He needs the same women he fell in love with. Funny, mysterious, smart, legs shaved, makeup, sexy, alluring. Sweats and ponytails are great, and sometimes sexy. But when you cut off access to the women he desired mentally and physically, why would he chase what he doesn't feel attracted to?
That's why with this is what it is. This is it.
Where did that come from? I don't understand. Okay, do you want me to keep going, or you want to
elaborate? Explain your question.
Explain that.
To elaborate on your question, it's like I don't really like dress up. Like, I have a little black dress, but I'm not putting it on our fucking first date because I don't want you to think that this is what it is all the time.
Right.
I
Yeah.
totally
Like,
agree.
this is me. I like jeans. I like my stretchy pants. Like, I like being comfortable. Sometimes I throw my hair up. Sometimes I leave it down. Sometimes it's straight. Sometimes it's curly. Sometimes I put on lip gloss. Sometimes I don't.
But I think it's...
I don't wear cover up. This is what it is. I drink a lot of water.
No. But I think the thing is like...
I agree with what the article says. I agree that
like if he saw you in the maxi dress and that's what he fell in love with, like I think that's the thing. Like if you were like the way that you said, like mad normal and whatever, and that's what he fell in love with, then you're good. You don't have to do the maxi dress all the time.
That's why I didn't wear a maxi dress when it's 20 degrees outside.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But like, if you like completely change, because I always see those memes where it's like, you know,
when you met her,
like 1 month in the relationship, she's like all sexy and stuff. She's like, hey babe, and then like, you know, like a year into the relationship, she got her freaking like face mask on with the freaking like shower head on, going to bed like, okay babe, like give me a kiss, and you're like, nah, I'm good. You know, it's just like I don't know, but like that's what it means. But I completely understand what you're saying too.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I do think that's part of the thing. Like when you date somebody, like that's kind of why like I like seeing people in their natural environment, because you're like, cool, this is who you really are. Like
your natural habitat.
Like, yeah, like this is not like, I don't, you know, you're not all like, you know, G'd up all the time.
Well, I think that's why it's important to I think when people are dating, they try so hard to be people that they're not, and it's just it's just good to just be yourself and be honest from the beginning. I mean, it's like if I'm, you know, gonna date someone and I'm starting to get serious with them, I'm gonna be like, by the way, when I'm going to bed at night, I don't look like this. You know, just so you know.
Right.
Because I think, you know,
I wear flannel pajamas and like Bob Marley t-shirts to bed.
Yeah.
FYI. And sometimes they put Vicks up my nose.
So hot.
I hope you like menthol.
I hope you like menthol.
I get stuffy sometimes. I have to sleep with the humidifier, man.
Ooh, babe, what's that smell?
Vicks, boo.
Wow.
We joke, but it's serious stuff.
Yeah.
She's not kidding.
To both men and women, you want to be happy, then put in effort emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. Give them your best and demand theirs as well. Love isn't found, it's built, and you can only do that together. Want true happiness? Stop making excuses. Don't stay with an asshole. Happiness is an inside job, and it's never going to come to you if you don't take a stand. Do something. Do anything. Just stop pretending that life is happening to you. You are, unfortunately, a participant in your own misery, and only you can change it.
I say that all the time. I said, only you can prevent forest fires. I mean, I know somebody else says that.
Yeah, somebody else says that. A little bit more famous.
Look at the bear. He's the guy. But I do tell people that. Like, I really believe that only you can prevent forest fires. I'm not talking about real fucking fires. I'm talking about like the fires within your life.
Metaphor fires.
Metaphor fires. Right. She knows. But yeah, I think that you have to take accountability, and I do understand from, I hate using the word victim, but like from the person who's being abused perspective, you don't see it at that time. You're like, I can't do anything about this because I can't lose him. But like, you have to really ask yourself, what the fuck are you losing? You know, like, oh, I don't have to argue every day. I don't have to cry every day. Oh, well, that doesn't seem so bad. But you just see like, but I'm not going to have anyone to cuddle with at night. And
right.
I'm not, sleeping alone is amazing.
Well,
I'm just saying.
So breakups are hard. It doesn't matter. Like they're hard. Even if the breakup is a good thing, it's a tough thing to go through.
Right.
So people want to avoid that kind of pain, but it's like ripping off the Band-Aid, you know. You just got to do it. And I think it's scary. And to be honest, my relationship, when it ended, it wasn't like it kind of dissolved. It wasn't like I didn't pull the plug, you know. It took a few months, and it it just kind of evaporated, and I guess I never even really got closure on it. We just kind of stopped. And I think I wish that I had taken the initiative earlier on and just just been like, no, you know what? You're an asshole and I am completely done with this. Like, forget it. I'm out. Bye forever. And I didn't do that. And I just, if to you listener, if you are, if you're in a situation like this, I envy your ability to be able to stand up for yourself and take the initiative and just get yourself out of there, because I can't imagine how like incredibly liberating that's going to feel. And of course it's absolutely going to be hard at first, but people are afraid that they're not going to be able to rebuild their lives, but you absolutely can. It's you can rebuild it and it'll be better than it was before. And especially if you've been with someone for a really long time. It's people are always afraid of starting over. It's the reason people don't leave jobs that they hate. They don't want to have to start over again, and just freaking do it, man. I mean, life is too short.
And also there's 2 points that I want to give, like where you can go to for help if your friends are not doing it or whatever. Like there's 2 things. There's the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-SAFE, which is 1-800-799-7233, and also a crisis text line, and you can text GO at 741-741, and it's free, and it's 24/7, and it's confidential. So
that's awesome.
So there's that.
I think it'd be good just to even have like an outside partner to talk to, not partner, like person, maybe
your side chick.
Exactly. It's like, I'm talking to Jake from State Farm. But like, you can't call a therapist necessarily at like 2 a.m, but you might be able to like text or call one of those hotlines, because sometimes you're like at your breaking point at 2 o'clock in the morning, like, I don't know what to do and this is bad, and I don't know, because one of the things that I think people in emotionally abusive relationships do, the abusers, is like they'll have no qualms about leaving you in your state of dismay, and then you sit there and now you've become cycling through all these thoughts, and why did he do this, and he's so mean, and how can I just get him to forgive me? And you didn't even fucking do anything, but you're just like working on the the fixing of whatever broke. And I think during those times where you're without him or her, but with your thoughts, it's good to reach out to some unrelated party to be like, this is what's going on, I don't know what to do, I feel lost, or whatever you feel. Just say it.
Yeah. And then another thing that I would recommend is, it's something that I run into is like, if I'm ever having these discussions and I'm trying to talk it out. As you may remember when we first started, I was like fumbling over my words because I couldn't really think of what to say. And it's because sometimes either you block out the experiences, or you don't remember the specific instances that happen. And I would say, not that like you need to have evidence or anything like that, but keep a journal or something. Start writing down the little things that happen, so that when, and I'll tell you, another thing I tended to, actually, this might have been the thing that I couldn't think of before. I think a thing that I ran into a lot was that he had so much power over me, and he was so manipulative and so persuasive that if I started to make an argument or like defend myself, he was so good at just turning it around and making it my fault, or he was so good at defending himself that I'd be like, wait, I'm totally wrong. What, like, and it's like a magic trick. I would be like, wait, how did this happen? I was totally right at the beginning of this conversation. So, I would actually, we probably broke up like 5 times. And I think, the more successful times I did it, I actually had to write him letters, and like I would write it down and I'd be like, I need you to read this, and the reason that I wrote it, and like I don't, and it seems like a cop out sometimes, like doing a like they always say, don't text message break up, like that kind of thing, and because it's such a cop out. But sometimes with certain people, it's sometimes the only way that you can talk to them. If you like, I knew that if I were to say these things out loud, that he would interrupt and that he would suddenly make it my fault. And I was like, I know that the only way that he's going to register all this is if he reads it like he's reading an article. And so I think that's why it's important to kind of document the things that you're going through. don't be afraid to do it in writing, and just get it done. And you know what, honestly, if you feel like the only way that you can get out of this bad relationship is to send them a text message and say it's over and not go home, freaking do it. Like, don't let any like media or anyone tell you that that like, oh, it's such a dick move. It's like, the dick move was the abuse in the first place. So if you need to get out, just get out. Just do it how you have to do it.
Yeah. And it's so funny too, because like listening to your stories, and I don't necessarily have a personal story, but I do remember a friend, a male friend actually, and he was being emotionally abused by pretty much like his first girlfriend like ever. So I think that's kind of like what stemmed from it too, because he's like, oh, I can't leave, whatever, because like she's awesome. But like I remember when she would like just completely like abuse like his interests and all that stuff, because I remember one time where I met her the first time, and let's say like Comic-Con was like 2 months away or something like that. And I was like, oh, like, are you going to go to like Comic-Con? She's like, oh, what's that? And I was like, oh, well, and I told her about it. And she was like, oh, that's kind of like weird. I don't know if there's anything that would be there for me. I was like, well, no, like, yes, it's a big convention, but there are pretty much things for like everybody. And I'm sure you can find something, because I mean, you like actors and stuff like that, don't you? And I started naming people. She's like, oh, I like him. And it's like, well, they're going to be there. So there you go. There's something for you. She's like, oh, maybe, whatever. So like she never went, but the thing was like I remember this so vividly. So like me and him and another friend were in the car, and he's driving and we're going, and she calls, and she calls him. She's like, oh, like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm going to Comic-Con with my friends, like we're all in the car. And she's like, oh, you're going to that stupid shit. Like, I can't believe you're doing that. You're not hanging out with me. Like, what? Well, like, I hope you have fun with all those fucking Comic-Con girls. I hope you fuck all of them, you fucking bastard. Blah, blah, blah. You're such an asshole. Blah, blah. You're such a nerd. You're a loser. Going to that stuff. And we're just like, me and my other friend, like, who's in the back seat, we're like just dumbfounded. We're like, what the, like, yo, why is she like going in on like this guy, or like in front of us? Well, I don't know if she knew, but like, we're like, wow, like this is so crazy. And like we finally saw what he was going through. And the thing was, he couldn't even have fun the whole day there, because he was so fixated on trying to make things work with her. So I think we went there on maybe like a Friday or Saturday. So if you guys don't know, Comic-Con's like 3 days. Well, technically 4, but like they're 3 days. Mm-hmm. And I think we went on Friday. Like, he was on the phone from the time we were there to like when we like left. He didn't even have any fun. We're all like on the show floor. We tried to get him into panels. We tried to have him see like his favorite like comic book characters, people dressed up as his favorite comic book character. He didn't care. He was on the phone.
That shit's expensive
the whole time. No, he was texting, all this stuff, calling her like, "Yo, I'm sorry, we're just like doing these things, blah blah blah." Like, and I know sometimes, audience, you've heard me like get like all uppity on this like podcast, but like never have I ever been so angry. Like, I remember when we like left and we got back to where we lived. But then we decided to like go out, like, like to like a barbecue place or something like that. And he was like, and his phone was on like 5% or whatever. And he was like, oh, I gotta take my phone because she might call. And I was like, yo, get off the fucking phone. And I was like, get off the fucking phone. She's such a bitch. And I almost took his phone and like threw it across like the fucking highway, because I was so angry that he was so obsessed with trying to make this work with like this obvious bitch. And like he really couldn't see it until I got mad, because then he knew. He was like, oh shit,
because you don't get mad.
He was like, oh shit, something's up, because fucking Martini's pissed. You know what I'm saying? Like, and like that doesn't happen too often. But he was just like, yo, okay, I need to reevaluate what's going on. And then that's when he started to really break down and whatever. So like, he's long has broken up with that female. I mean, he like brings her up every once and now again, but like he's totally like over her and past that. He's in a very good relationship, and she loves him and all that stuff, and she loves what he's into, and she's even wanting to go to Comic-Con, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. So like, he's good, he's fine. But it's just that, just seeing, I can't believe I was about to like end the episode without even like thinking about that. No, like she was extremely abusive. Oh my God. And I don't even know where, because like I remember Jennifer was said in the last podcast that like people have deficits in them, and I can't even fathom what that deficit is within her, that she would just continuously just
selfish.
Yeah, just go into him like that. It's just horrible. I don't know.
So I actually have a meme. I don't know if we're there, but
No, we're definitely there. Yeah, we could do meme of the day.
So meme of the day is just a little boy with the flower holding it next to a little girl, and it says, when someone loves you, they don't have to say it. You could tell by the way they treat you.
Yeah, I mean that's
as plain as it gets.
As plain as it can be, you know, like people.
But saying it's nice, guys. Just
well, yeah. Saying it is definitely nice, but no. Like,
yeah, we like to hear it, but
yeah. Like
people can say anything.
People don't.
Well,
abuse you if they love you.
I guess because my only experience is an abusive relationship, I had to hear it because otherwise I had no idea. So
there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Moving forward, it will be much better. You'll be like, damn, this is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Jennifer already said like she asked you if you've grown, and you said hell yeah. So like you already know that whatever holds in the future, if you want to get with a guy or not, you don't have to, obviously, but like you already know that it is going to be better. You don't need somebody to already tell you that. You're like, whoa, I'm already at a better place than I was before.
Right.
So that's great.
I hope this was enlightening to people. If you have any other questions or you want to talk about anything or just talk or get advice, you know, the email, bedlovebeyond@gmail.com. We have the phone number. We're all ears. And it's a no shame, no hate zone. So
No, yeah. And of course, like I always say, like we're not experts, you know, we're just like in the same boat as you guys. So it's all good to have like just like a communal space to just talk about things, and like I said before, you know, we gave you those two things to call or whatever, so we just want to direct you to the right place, and we want to give you, you know, some solace into like your hard day or week or anything like that, just to be like, hey, everything's fine, you know, we're just like you, everything's all good, and it will be good. All right, so
thank you for coming, Brigid.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is the end of our show. Thank you so much, Brigid, for coming in and telling your stories.
Sharing,
yes, telling your stories, and thank you, Jen, for telling your stories as well.
Yeah,
it's gonna help people, definitely. All right, guys. So we will see you later.